boogeyman is real, and you found him.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm your number one fan.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
7 days.
I am Dracula.
We have such sights to show you. Boy!
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I am the eater of worlds and of children.
What's in the fucking box?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
One by one, we will take you.
Never get out of bed again!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else gets the hose again.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only podcast that's hanging 1 foot off the crazy train. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week on Sundays, remember, we do this live every preceding Wednesday right here on YouTube. So we hope to see you in the live chat. Join us. It gets pretty crazy. This week, we are looking back at select horror films released February 18th through February 24th. So thank you all so much for joining us on your Valentine's Day, because we're recording this on Wednesday, so it's Valentine's Day, and this will surely be a bloody good time. I am JL, and I am holding down the fort. The boys are busy, but I think we're going to have a good show. I really, really do. And I appreciate it, that y'all who are, I guess, choosing to just spend your Valentine's Day with me. I know there's a lot of couples that are probably in the chat, so I do appreciate seeing everybody. You all rock. So, thank you very, very much. Let me see. We got a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah, so a bunch of stuff going on in the live chat that I want, that actually I've seen the message there, and I want to get there real quick. But first and foremost, let's make sure we put up that Patreon banner, and make sure that we got, actually, wait, let's do this, because... Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so, boom. There's our Patreon banner. All those amazing people, all their names that are help to make this show possible. We do appreciate your support, y'all. Thank you very, very much. You can check out the link to our Patreon down in the description. Patreon.com/weekinhorror if you'd like to support the show. More on that later on. So, but I'm sure a lot of you have already heard that. Nonetheless, I see a bunch of people in the chat. Let me see. Who do we have? We got Casey Cooper is here. Good to see you, Casey Cooper. He was first, as well as Travis Brown. This evening, y'all. Let the buzz tonight with the buzz. Let us get buzzed tonight with the buzz of the evening. Bzz, yes, there's a lot of buzz going on. Good to see you, bud. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. I do appreciate you being here. Left-handed Jedi, good to see you. Says, to his barber, I want a buzz cut. Take a little off the top. I love that. Left-handed Jedi. I think we need to update your shipping details, because I got a message and we have some prizes on the way to you, but they've been delayed. So if you can get me your updated shipping details, I sent you a message via Discord, but if you can email them to us, weekinhorror@gmail.com, or just message me directly via Discord, you can respond to that message. Let me know. I need to make sure that your shipping deals are correct, because I got a message from Teespring saying, yo, we have an issue. So let us know, because we got those things prepped and ready to go for you. Let me see who else we got here. Charlie Welch is here. Says Yo Fiends. Good to see you, Charlie. Thanks so much for hanging out. I tried to do my normal thing. He's like Charlie Welch, the only man on the internet never make a bet with. Welchy, good to see you. I guess I double clutched on it. So, but good to see you, bud. Sally Skellington is here. Says, why no review of Bloody Valentine movies? Okay, so My Bloody Valentine didn't release in the same week as Valentine's Day. Well, it may have been Valentine's Day or closer when it released, but it did not fall in this week. So, or I guess it would have no, but it didn't fall on Valentine's Day. I believe it released before Valentine's Day in preparation so that the run would cover Valentine's Day, but it technically didn't release on Valentine's Day or the same week as Valentine's Day. So, unfortunately, that's why we didn't cover. But we did cover My Bloody Valentine much earlier. I believe we covered that season 2. I believe we covered that in season 2. It's either season 1 or season 2, very early in the show. It was a great Canadian slasher film. That really kind of like changed changed a lot of the subgenres. So, but yeah, unfortunately, not this week. Joshua Lee, good to see you. Says Happy Singles Awareness Day, everyone. Thanks for hanging out, Joshua. Do appreciate that. Elizabeth S., good to see you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Let me see. Sherry Tilley says, woo, I forgot it was Wednesday. Hey, all good to see you, Sherry. Thanks so much for hanging out. Angel Rivera as well. Says, what up, Horror Fiends? Good to see you, Angel. Thanks so much for being here. John Monahan is hanging out. Good to see you, John. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. Charlie Welch says, give me a happy birthday, JL. LOL, it's this Saturday. He's turning 44. Congratulations, bud. Happy birthday. You're almost halfway, almost halfway to the big 5-0. So congratulations. Happy birthday, Charlie Welch. I hope it is an amazing Saturday for you. I really, really do. Casey Cooper says, you rock Solo, JL. Appreciate that, bud. I thank you very, very much. That means a lot, because solo shows are always really dicey, depending upon what films we're going to talk about, how deep we can get into them. If some of the movies are kind of shallow and there's not much, it's kind of like they're pretty boilerplate or formulaic in their construction, and there's not much depth to the acting, and they don't really reflect anything major other than like basic, fears or anxieties or concerns or whatever. But there's nothing to really tie it into the zeitgeist. That's tough. It's hard to, digress on those, but without it turning into just like a flat out review, which is what we don't really want to do on this show. We don't want to do just like, oh, this is what we thought of this movie, and this really, no, we want to dig deep into what they are, and that can be tough sometimes. So I appreciate that, Casey. You rock. Let me see. Cindy Sue, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Hey, I'm a poet and I didn't know it. Says, hey, I got into a Noah's Ark argument on Facebook last night. It was fun. Oh, Facebook arguments are always entertaining as hell. They really are. Sometimes you just want to but yeah. Let me see. Who else we got in the chat tonight? Dib is here. Says, lurk mode engaged. Good to see you lurking up there, Dib. It's always nice to have lurkers. Jinju is here. Says, is it really breaking hearts if you're ripping them out? Evening, everyone. You're protecting it by keeping it whole, is what it is. That's what it is. And then you put it in a nice little box, and then, you can keep it safe there. Thanks, Jinju, for hanging out. Appreciate you being here, bud. And I think that's it. Let me see. Okay, those things are okay. Joshua Lee says, not yet. I'll have to hit up JL in Discord later. Those are on the way to you, Josh. I promise you that it will be there soon. So I got the notification that they are out, so that those are out in transit. So Teespring, like that, but that is getting to you. It should be arriving soon. I don't have a specific date as to when. I have a window as to when it will arrive, which it could be early, I've even had a window, and I've had people say that it arrived early. So, but I promise you it'll be there. I promise you it's on the way. Dan Shire's here. It says, proud lurker. Good to see you, bud. Thanks so much for hanging out, Dan. All right, buddy, we have a bunch. Or we have several horror films to talk about. Several that I find intriguing. That I found actually there's a couple in here that I think we're gonna dive pretty deep in on this. I wish Eugene was here. I wish Eugene or Johnny was here. Johnny would be fantastic to talk about one of these films, because the film itself has such a the music selections for the movie are so important as to what the director was trying to say. Johnny's input would have been really fantastic on that. I think he would have had some serious opinions on how that played out. I think it would have been really, really good. Javier Har is here. Says, Jello. Good to see you, Javier. Appreciate you hanging out tonight. Let me see. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. I really didn't. In a heart-shaped box. Yeah, absolutely, Cindy Sue. In a heart-shaped box. A heart in a heart-shaped box. Absolutely. I think I got everybody. Yes, I did not miss somebody. All right. Well, thank you all so very, very much for being here with us tonight. Angel Rivera says, received the mug today. Another great design for the collection. Awesome. Glad you enjoyed that. I do love our mug collection. Our coffee mug collection is really, really cool. We got the basic mug with the Week in Horror logo. We've got coffee mugs that feature the artwork, feature Joshua Olsen's artwork for it was a special one. We had our 150th episode limited edition mug, and then we had another one which is kind of like the Week in Horror logo, but in the Josh Olsen style, where it's all kind of like gooey and gross and horror style. So really, really good stuff. Sir Cad says, sorry I'm late. I was watching the end of Lost Highway. What a trip. Yes, it is. And I promise you, we're going to dive into that. Or at least I'm going to dive into that. Get you all's opinions on it, because that movie has some exploration. It requires some exploration, I think. That's why I really wish Johnny was here, because the music selection, the music is so important in that movie that Johnny would definitely have an opinion, given the artists that they use and how they formulated that music. So I'm really, really curious. It's an interesting story behind that. We'll get into it later. Well, I promise you we'll get into it later. But first, before we kick off everything tonight, before we kick off the movies we're going to talk about tonight, I found a trailer. Somebody mentioned it to me last week, and then I saw the teaser for it. And then when the actual trailer dropped, I pulled the trailer because, yes, we have to watch this trailer. And if you haven't seen it, I went ahead and put it on the Terror Tube for you. So here we go. I am bringing you, first and foremost, the trailer for the upcoming horror film, Lovely, Dark, and Deep. So I hope you dig this. Let's check it out. Cue up the Terror Tube.
You don't have to worry about the mirrors anymore. It's all over.
Hurry, fucking Moses, y'all get the fuck out of here! Clowny, keep your paws where I can see.
Yeah, don't move. Or I'll blast the holes the size of a Kansas City watermelon through your ugly ass bozo face!
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
Initiation's over, Michael. It's time to join the club.
Congrats on the dream job. Been after this for years, ain't you?
Leave nothing but footprints. Kill nothing but time.
Morning, Rangers.
114 responding, over.
There's no database for people who go missing in the national park. And there are a lot of similarities between these cases.
Wake up!
This is where you need to be. You're taken from us. We have a missing person. Be safe out there, Rangers. Over and out.
They take. And we let them. Who? Who knows?
I don't understand what's happening.
There's a door!
They keep us here. Wake up!
All right, so that was the trailer for Lovely, Dark, and Deep. So fascinating little film. And just in time for the end of the trailer, Eugene is here.
What's up, everybody?
So did you get a chance to see it?
I haven't seen the trailer yet.
Oh, we just played it.
I will be back in 2 minutes for comments.
Well, yeah, if you want to check it out, if you want to mute and you want to check it out on your side, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, then we can get your opinion. So,
okay.
So first and foremost, thank you very, very much, Joshua Lee, for recommending that trailer. Recommending the teaser when it came out. I went and checked it out, saw the trailer, and I was like, yes, I am totally intrigued about this. Now, Lovely, Dark, and Deep, written and directed by Teresa Sutherland in their feature-length debut, starring Georgina Campbell, Nick Blood, and Wai Ching Ho. The film follows Campbell's character Lennon, who is a backcountry ranger starting a brand new job in a national park where in the recent past, a number of fellow rangers as well as members of the public have gone missing. So obviously from the trailer, there's a lot of vibes that are going on in that. I will say this, the film looks phenomenally well shot. I love the cinematography that we see so far, and the trailer didn't give anything. I don't think it gave anything away. We got a lot of snapshots, we got a lot of tension building, and I'm liking that they did not spoil anything major, aside from one little thing. Haha, Aaron Reese, you haven't been on the show in forever, so you don't get to talk shit. Okay, so I thought Lonely, Dark, and Deep was the biography of Jail's mom's vagina. I don't know what kind of actions my mom is getting. I really don't. I don't know what kind of action she's getting these days. But no, you don't get to talk shit. When you get on the when you come back on the show, then you can talk shit, sir. Anyway, so there was one line. There's one line in the film that I think kind of may have tipped the hat a little bit, and that was when the older ranger, like their supervisor, states, "We let them take." And it's like, what are they? We don't know. It's like we let them take, and we, it's kind of like keeping the balance. It harkens back to the kind of like the setup in Midnight Meat Train, where the balance is kept between the monsters and humanity by humanity allowing the monsters to kind of like, cull off of the human race so that there's no like epic war erupting or something of that nature, to kind of like keep it localized, keep the carnage localized. So I get kind of vibes like that. I also got like Fae vibes. So it's kind of like changelings. Yes, Left-Handed Jedi, you just said it, Fae. I get Fae vibes because it's like changelings or fairy folk that are stealing people or whatever in that respect. So I got vibes of that. But there's also, given the cinematography, given a lot of the shots that we saw, and given obviously the scoring, I get Lovecraftian vibes. So like there are these maybe interdimensional horrors that exist in like these remote places or in this particular place, and it utilizes fear and destabilizing psychological techniques in order to break people down and weaken them mentally so that they can then be grabbed. They wander in the woods and they get grabbed. So because they use like fear and psychological attacks. So that's the vibe that I'm getting. That's the vibe that I get off the film. Now, from what I stuff like that, yeah. And so I dig what I'm seeing so far. For something so in depth, it can be a little challenging for a first-time director. Now, Teresa Sutherland has a lot of little work under their belt. So the question then is, making that transition from like doing your little films, doing work for other people, gig stuff like that, to doing a full-on feature film is always tough. As prepared as you think you might be, things happen. When you're shooting for like a week or like 2 weeks, that's one thing. But when you're shooting for like 3 months, 4 months, especially in, you're shooting on location in the outdoors, somewhere like that, you never know what can happen. But the film looks fantastic from first glance. And I'm loving the setup and the story. And what do you think, Eugene? Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, so I just watched the trailer, and the trailer looks fantastic. And I don't know if it's just lately trailers have been getting better in horror films. Like the last probably about 4 that we've watched here have been fantastic. It can go so many different directions because it can hint that maybe it's something psychological, maybe it's something supernatural, maybe it's some like a cosmic horror thing, or maybe some kind of alien, maybe some kind of who knows. So but the fact that there's so many different possibilities and what makes it really interesting. And you keep the premise just basic. Park ranger, middle of nowhere, in the woods, go. And it seems like he's going to have some really cool reveals, like when she was taking a knee and you see like the person crawling down the tree behind him. I love stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay, some really good moments. Or when even in the thumbnail that I saw where it's like Park Ranger outfit, it has this spiky thing coming up, whatever, that could be hallucination, alien creature, what, we don't know.
I think it's a hallucination. I think it is.
It's a hallucination.
That's why I'm leaning towards like the cosmic horror aspect of this. Now, Aaron Reese brings up an interesting point here. It's like the intro text is very similar to Missing 411. So they may insinuate what happens in multiple places. That's right. So if anyone is not familiar with are you familiar with the Missing 411 series? Okay, so Missing 411 is this. It started out as like, I think it was like a book or it was like a podcast, something like that. But this guy who was an ex law enforcement officer has found that there are cluster events of people who go missing in national parks around the United States. So like if you map out missing person trends in the United States, there appear to be clustering effects around the national parks, particularly in Yosemite is pretty dense. Now, that's an interesting little tidbit. Now, why would there be clusters there? Because the national parks are dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing, then you can get hurt or you can disappear. And that happens actually quite often as people vanish without a trace in national parks. Why does this happen? Well, people wander off, people get lost, people go off trail, people get attacked by animals, people fall off cliffs. There's a number of reasons why. And because they attract so many people, you have a high incoming population and a lot of people who are not trained, and a lot of accidents happen and people go missing. That's the reason for the cluster. He takes it another direction and he posits things like aliens and Bigfoot. And so he kind of goes in that direction. And he's also like, gone after skinwalkers and stuff like that. So I don't subscribe to that, but it's an interesting phenomena. Cluster events of missing people there. And that's essentially kind of like setting up the premise for this one. So it has vibes of like Missing 411, where I don't think it's Bigfoot. I don't think it's aliens. I think it is cosmic horror. So which is always going to get my attention. So thank you, Aaron Reese, for pointing that out. Absolutely. And Jinju says, wondering if this is an expansion of a short. Think I've seen this story in a short. There is a familiarity to it because I think there are bits of it that are kind of like embedded in our memory from the in the past. So I think that's where that's coming from. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was a feature-length version of a short that was done. Travis Brown says, "Oh look, it's Eugene who's going to share his Valentine's Day storyboards." We can't show those.
No, we can't. You have to go to Weekend Horror After Dark.
That's right. Sarcasm says, editors are earning their money. Fuck yes, they are. They are earning their money. And Casey Cooper says they listen to Weekend Horror about giving away the whole film in the trailer. Let's hope they're listening to the show. Let's really do.
I'll tell you right now that trailer editors, because trailer editors are different than actual like film editors. Cutting a trailer is an art form. And to keep it interesting without revealing too much, whereas you create the intrigue, it's something that's really, really hard to do. And trailer editors don't get their day because they're not usually involved in the feature film. And even at sometimes when they're starting to edit the trailer, the film's not done yet. So things that are, oh man, they may not have the monster, like the CGI monster complete, so they can't show the monster, which could be a good thing. So trailer editors really, really should, they really should get their due. And I've always believed that it should be a category in the Academy Awards of Best Trailer, regardless of how good the movie is, because we've all seen bad movies but have really good trailers. You're like, I need to watch the trailer again.
Let's see. And Casey Group says, Bigfoot is an alien. Yep. But Cindy Sue is right. People pet the fuzzy cows. They do. Or they try to take like selfies with bears. Just as Jinju says, couldn't be from trying to take selfies with bears. Nah, must be something else. Yeah. So national parks. I've been to many. And if you know what you're doing, they're a lot of fun. You can see a lot of cool stuff and you can have a real blast. But if you don't know what you're doing, it is really, really easy for bad stuff to happen. It really, really is. And when people freak out, their memories get messed up and, people don't report stuff. It's wacky things like that. Joshua Lee says, the other thing that intrigued me is the paper at the beginning. It opens up with a shot after the title card. It opens up with a shot of a person placing a paper on a sign that says, I owe this place a body. Now, I found that really, this is what gives me a lot of hope for the film that Teresa Sutherland did their homework when it comes to this. I owe this place a body is a mantra that backpackers, outdoor survivalists, and other people in that kind of like subgroup, that is a common phrase that is utilized to remind oneself of the balance of nature and where one fits in the balance of nature. That you came from the earth, you will return to the earth. And to remind yourself of that so that you don't, if you want to live, you remember that that's what's going to happen. So it's a constant reminder to respect the environment that you're in, to respect yourself, and to respect that balance between the two, because you can as easily destroy it as quickly as it can destroy you. So that's kind of like a hiker or a backpacker's mantra, like, with Rangers or Forest Stewards or even the Scouts, which is where I initially heard it, plus the whole, like, leave only footprints, kill only time, no trace, no trace, no impact camping, stuff like that. That's kind of that's where that falls in line. So definitely. Let me see. A horror OnlyFans. No, we don't need a horror OnlyFans. Although it would be hilarious.
It would be.
Yes, it would. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm very, very curious. I'm really digging it, and I like what I'm seeing so far. I'm saying, but I've been disappointed before. I've been hurt before, and on this Valentine's Day, I've been hurt before by horror films. So I'm about 90-10 on this film. I will ask XYZ Films, do not release any more trailers. Leave it at that one. Do what they did with The Ritual. Release one trailer, okay? And maybe some teasers to kind of like satellite around it, but don't release anything more. The key to a movie like The Ritual was that we never, ever got a sense of what the monster was until we saw the film. That's what made that movie so fucking great. When you finally see that body composite pagan monstrosity come out of the woods, and you're like, holy shit. Because you are not prepared, given the setup right there. You're thinking this is just a cult. It's like, oh, idiot backpackers fall prey to cult. No, idiot backpackers fall prey to pagan god is what that was. So it was kind of like, holy shit. And so, yeah, don't spoil anything else, XYZ. Don't. We got enough.
I agree. And a movie should get one full-length trailer, you get your 2 or 3 minute one, and then you get your 15 to 30 second spots, which should composite primarily of stuff used in the trailer. And then whenever you cut a trailer, you shouldn't have to use the last 30 minutes of your film.
Right.
Because there's nothing like you watch a trailer a couple times and then you start seeing a movie and you're like, oh, it looks like this scene in the trailer is about to happen. Or the movie wants you to think someone's dead and you're like, oh, but in the trailer, this scene hasn't happened yet and they were in that scene. I've always hated stuff like that.
Let me see. Paracord Princess, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out. It says, take only pictures, leave only footprints. Yep. Kill only time. Absolutely. I got to get back outdoors again. I really do. There's some, you know what? This is funny because here in Oklahoma, there is a national park. There's a national park like down in the southeast corner of the state where apparently there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Now, I don't believe that Bigfoot is a thing. I think it's a bunch of like, people running around in the woods, hoping to see a big furry man, but I don't. Totally the mental image there. But I need to get back. I really do. I need to get back out and do some outdoor stuff because it's been too long. I've been in this office for too long. I need to get out and do some stuff. So looking forward to that. Lovely Dark and Deep is scheduled for release February 22nd. So here in a couple of weeks, it's going to be, maybe a week. Yeah, here in a week, a little over a week, it's going to be released here in the U.S. So really, really looking forward to that. And so far, the critics' reviews are pretty positive. So looking forward to a nice atmospheric cosmic horror, from XYZ Films. Paracord Princess, my wife is an Oklahoma native. Okay, Angela's an Oklahoma native. She fucking hates that song. She hates it with a passion. She can't stand it. And then people hear, oh, you're from Oklahoma? Whoa, Oklahoma. And she just no, she'll walk away. So it's hilarious because she can't stand it. Casey Cooper says, I predict if jail goes there will be immediate Bigfoot sightings. I'm a little Bigfoot. I'm not a big Bigfoot. I'm a little Bigfoot, I'll be like, I'll be a baby Bigfoot. That's what I'll be. I'll be a baby Bigfoot. Oh, fantastic. Oh, let me see. So Josh Lee, did it say? Oh, Josh Lee says, did it say when it releases? Yep, February 22nd. So looking forward to that. That's gonna be a good one. I'm gonna pick that one. I'm definitely gonna check that out. Definitely. All right. Well, we have got some horror movies to talk about.
Why, yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Well, yes, we do. Sorry, that was that's the accent for next month. That's the accent for St. Patty's. So, that is a shame. Lieutenant Jedi said Julian Sands passed away while he was an avid mountaineer and hiker, and it was a shame that he whatever happened out there in the mountains where he was trekking. So, but yeah, our hearts went out to Julian Sands. I'm glad that they were able to find him, that they did find him in so they can give the family closure. That was a good thing, that they were able to locate him and determine, and give him that final resting spot. So, but the man loved nature. You got to give him that. He loved being outside, and he loved the outdoors, and he always spent time in it. So that was a shame, definitely. But not getting us down, Johnny. Oh, sorry, Johnny. I have Johnny in the script. Eugene, tell him what we got up first.
All right.
I mean, they know because of the thumbnail, but
what we got first, a film that shouldn't have been made, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released February 18th, 2022. Roll it.
Tui, you talked. You opened your trap. You thing, and you said...
Feed me, Carbon! Feed me now!
Sarah, move it! Get in! Get in!
So Harlow is a ghost town.
We have a vision for this place. All it needs is young blood.
I don't want to live here. This is a chance for people to start fresh somewhere. Somewhere safe. Hey, guys. You should see this.
What are you doing in our house? You really shouldn't be here.
Oh my God.
This is Hardesty.
Sally? I'm afraid your old friend's back.
50 years I've been waiting for this night. Just to see him again.
Who?
Leatherface. Looks like it's you that he wants.
I'm not gonna let him kill you. Fear no evil. Fear no evil.
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Oh, fuck.
That is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, directed by David Blue Garcia, a story by Fede Alvarez and Rudo Sangis, and starring Sarah Yelkin, Elise Fisher, Mark Burnham, Mo Dunford, Neil Hudson, Jessica Allen, Owen Fiora, if I pronounce that one right, Jacob Lattimore, and Alice Kriege. And Kriege. And basically, you have a couple of social media influencers. You have a couple of young kids that go and buy a town in terms of renovating the town. And the town comes with Leatherface.
Yay! It comes with a surprise gift. Yeah.
Bonus gift. I will tell you right now, in terms of this movie, they basically saw the 2018 Halloween movie and was like, that's a good movie. We're going to copy that. And then we're going to copy and then make it worse. Because I will tell you, every aspect of this film is some kind of rip from the 2018 Halloween. And things like, for example, where all of a sudden you have Sally comes back. No one asked for that. No one. And it's one thing with Halloween where you have with Jamie Lee Curtis, who has a actual relation to Michael Myers. Not to mention Jamie Lee Curtis is still alive, so she can come back and portray her character.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, Marilyn Burns passed away back in 2014. So
So there was so they ended up, okay, well, we're gonna have Sally come back, played by somebody else, understandably, but it was something I never asked for a Sally versus Leatherface. I never have. Plus, on top of it, like with Laurie Strode, after everything that happened, you can picture her kind of, okay, she's gearing up. I know Michael Myers. I know he's going to come back. And it's this really cool premise. I never got that from Sally. Sally came across as somebody who was like happy to be alive. She survived the events and like left the country.
I would say either left the country entirely or at the end of the film, lived the rest of her life in a mental asylum because she was, broke and just spent out the rest of her days in an asylum somewhere. I see all the connections to the 2018 Halloween that you're speaking of. I honestly, at first I was kind of like, holy shit, they brought Sally back. And then I was like, oh, wait, oh shit, they brought Sally back because you're trying to riff off of that. My problem is that obviously it's the writing. The writing is the biggest issue on this one. Now, first and foremost, they make a real major point of stating that it's 50 years after the original Massacre back in 1974. 50 years have passed, okay? Now, we get a sense in the original 1974 film that Leatherface was at minimum in his mid-20s. That would make him like 25. His mid-20s, like 25, maybe 24 if you want to go this, but I would say mid-20s. 50 years later would put him at 75 or 74 years old. And this cat is like fucking unstoppable. No. There's no supernatural element to Leatherface. There might be to Michael Myers, but there is not that was the whole point, So the 75-year-old man this is just, it's ridiculous. So that was like the first giant misstep. And I get that they did it because they really, really wanted whoever wrote this, whether it was, I know that was Fede Alvarez and Roto was behind this, but I think there was other input because there seemed to be a really huge desire for let's see idiot TikTok millennials get chained, fucked up by a chainsaw. That's pretty much what it was. The whole film is a fucking setup for the bus scene.
Yep.
The whole film is that everything that happens in this movie is a setup for that bus scene, which is why it's somebody pointed out there, that it was Jinju says the OG of this was a slow burn. This was a slow smolder. It absolutely was a slow smolder. It kind of like peters along, like it's running out of gas. Then we get the bus scene, which objectively is hilarious because it's kind of like, you're canceled, bro. And there's like, oh, he doesn't care. Fuck. And then they all die. That's hilarious because it's just dumb. But then it peters out again into like this hackneyed fight. Sally gets croaked. And I'm not going to say how that goes down, and then this final ending that's kind of like what? Why?
Yep.
And then I don't know why, but it pissed me off. The electric car, like the self-driving car driving off. She's like, oh, like she can't control the situation. I'm like, what the fuck are these wrong? The dumbest people with the dumbest premise, and a dumb version of one of the legendary killers, one of the legendary slashers out there. It's just the only thing I liked was the casting of Alice Krige, because I'm a massive Alice Krige fan. I loved her. I've loved her, and everything's just, and I like the role she played in this. She's effective. She's always been a strong actress. She sells the kind of the setup there. I love how much she throws herself into a role. That's the only good thing about this movie is they cast Alice Krige. Too bad the movie itself is shit. Because no fucking way. No.
That's just no. It's because you brought up a good point. It's like, well, if he's 75 years old and he's wielding a chainsaw, he's able to throw people up in the air against the ceiling of the bus. Like, I don't care how big you are. You don't have the strength to do that anymore. When me and Johnny went to Frightmare and we saw Kane Hodder, big guy,
yes,
like big guy. Now
arms like fucking melons.
But he's now in his 70s, and he's not as intimidating as he was back in the 80s. It's just the way things happen. It's like he's not nearly as scary as he was 40 years ago.
Well, he doesn't have, I would say, just by virtue of age, he just doesn't have the size anymore.
Yeah,
it's hard to maintain that, but he still has that fucking glare, man.
Oh, he's awesome.
He glares like a motherfucker. And it's kind of like, oh shit.
I'm not knocking Kane Hodder by any means. I love Kane Hodder, and he was awesome. But I'm just saying, just to the facts of aging, and basically, I got the worst version of Leatherface. I hated the mask design.
I couldn't stand it either.
I couldn't stand it. The cinematography. The mask
is supposed to give personality. Whatever he's wearing is what dictates his identity, either the production design, like the design of it, was absolutely terrible, and so we didn't actually get to see anything in it, and then we didn't actually get to see anything, so there's no detail to it that actually provide us any kind of information about Leatherface's mindset, because that's the face that he wears is how we know what he's internalizing. Okay, that's the important thing, is how he focuses this stuff. But Mark Burnham, honestly, to be perfectly honest, I would not have cast Mark Burnham as Leatherface. I personally wouldn't have done it. I like Mark Burnham. I like it. He's a very talented actor. I wouldn't have cast him as Leatherface. I think that was just a miscast. Maybe there was nobody else. I would have cast like Ken Kersinger or someone else like that, at least to give it a little bit more, a little bit more authenticity as far as the size and the imposing nature of this entity goes, of this individual. But I don't. Also, Ken Kersinger, for all the foibles when he was playing Jason, is far better and more experienced in utilizing his body like Kane Hodder to utilize it in physically emoting. Okay, he's just more talented at it, or he has more experience. Kane is the best. Because he's the one that gave Jason his voice. But Mark Burnham, I don't think has the. Maybe it was a lack of money. I don't know, but I definitely wouldn't have gone that direction.
Honestly, if it's just bad direction all the way around,
right?
I just hands down. I honestly believe it was built off of that bus scene, which of course they spoil it in the trailer. It was built for that one moment. And it just felt dumb.
Yeah. Well, we don't give a shit.
It felt stupid.
We don't give a shit about any of them. Like we do. Like everybody, like all the characters in this are so fucking vapid that the only person we could even remotely care about is Sally. And the way that character is written is just lazy. If she literally says, "I'm expecting," I've been waiting for this moment to see this guy again, to encounter. I've known we were on a collision course. Then why didn't you prep like fucking Laurie Strode prepped? Okay, no, I understand. Like they wrote it in. She became a Texas Ranger, so she's trained with firearms. She knows all that stuff. But then you just grab a bag and you're like, "Let's go to town." No, fuck no. Have a plan. You know, don't just go meet the fucker in the street.
Yeah, have some kind of plan. Like Laurie Strode had traps set up in. I don't know what's happening with my camera right now, but like she had traps set up, and like, okay, my plan was to lure him into the basement,
right,
and then lock him in the basement, set the house on fire to make sure that, and like she spent time doing that. Sally was like, "Oh, this day might come. Let me grab a gun or two. Let me grab a bag. That's about it." It was just. And the only reason, when you mention in terms of caring about characters, the only reason we care about Sally is because the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
If this was just a complete brand new character, I wouldn't even care about her.
I wouldn't give a shit. Everybody's written so vapidly and just so self-centered that there's no reason to root for anybody. Even the forced melodrama between the sisters is not enough to try and solidify us with any one of the characters. We get one who's being petulant, one who's being short-sighted and closed-minded. So they just bounce off one another. The only character that I sympathize with was the mechanic dude who is like thinking the same. I know that character is thinking the same things that I'm thinking watching this movie. Who the fuck are these idiot fucking kids? This is some dumb ass shit. What the fucking shit? That's all I can say. Like, these like, when they see the rebel flag, like, and they have these cut from social media opinions. You know, I get having an opinion, but these characters were deliberately written to be shallow, they're written to be fodder. That's all they are. They're just fodder for Leatherface. And who are we identifying with? Who are we connecting with? Whose struggle is important here? Nothing. It's literally just a conveyor belt of idiots that apparently Fede Alvarez and his co-writer don't like, and they're just feeding it into Leatherface's chainsaw. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. They basically looked at the political climate that's going on, and we're just here. Let's show a bunch of them get killed because it'll be really funny. And they did. And the thing is, they didn't even lean into it in a way that could have been funny, like something like The Hunt, where it's like okay, they're showing you, it's like, the extremist of like the right side, this is what they can go. And at least it was like, okay, that movie was fun. It can have a point, and you can you actually care about some of the characters.
Right.
And Emma Roberts gets smoked so quickly.
I love that she got smoked so early.
It's awesome.
It was like, I was like, oh, please kill that. I'm sorry, Emma. I do. I know she's got talent. She plays bitches really, really well. Anytime she tries to go dramatic, it's not great. So I was like, oh, Emma Roberts in this? Fuck, she's so annoying when she's not a bad guy. When she's not deliberately being a bad guy, she's so annoying. And I was like, please smoke that bitch early. Bam!
You're like,
I was like,
man,
yes!
I can't believe she's in this. Oh, never. She is not in this movie.
She is not in this movie. That was fucking hilarious. I love that fucking Hilary Swank was the end of that, but it just like, it's awesome. I do have to say that I do want to point out, someone said, Aaron Reese said, Week in Horror, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 8. And I'm going to change it. Leather Space. That would be fucking hilarious. Oh, man. But yeah. And I also want to give a shout out to NA. Good to see you, bud. Thanks for hanging out in the chat with us. Who gifted 10 memberships to the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much, NA. You rock, dude. So welcome, Angel Rivera, Sherry Tilley, wrote it no less name, Sally Skellington, Dan Shire, the Bat, Janine Borgia, and Peter Harrington, and Miss Ellie to the Army of the Dead. Please enjoy those emojis we've made for you and your new channel badge. Thank you very much for that, NA. Very generous of you. You rock. Sarcasm says, Leatherface was the protagonist, taking out stupidity wherever it reared its ugly head. Yes! And it's technically a home invasion thing because they go in and they take over his fucking home, and they're going to kick him out, and he's like, I protect home. And then even the old lady's like, no, you got to leave. Y'all gonna die. She's basically the crazy, Alice Krieger got to play the crazy Ralph in this movie. And so then then she dies. So technically they inadvertently killed his caretaker and then tried to displace him. And this fucker fought gentrification like nobody's goddamn business. It's like, gentrify this motherfucker. I will say it was kind of satisfying at the very, very end when he like grabs her in the car, and I don't want to spoil that moment, but he's like, it's like that was pretty. I was like, okay, cool, yeah. Well, at least you get one of them,
And see, I thought that was so ridiculous, and it was telegraphed from the get-go.
Oh yeah,
like you're getting in the car and you're taking us like, man, this is lingering too long on the that one thing that smoked right now. Well, and then gets decapitated. Yeah, her and the car.
Because I can't control the car. The car drives itself. It's like.
Honestly, the way the movie should have ended, you could have smoked the first girl off, and she's just second one. She's like, I can't control the car, and then it hits a building, and the car blows up or something. That would have been
hilarious. Lieutenant Jedi says, "Stand your ground with a chainsaw." I like it. I do like it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that connect to what's going on in the I would say in the social media sphere, in the political spectrum. There's a lot of basically it's kind of like a salad bar of just hot button topics at the time, and then each of the teenagers that are the young adults that are in there, the social media people, every single one of them kind of represents one major hot button topic, so that they can have all this generated drama between all of them. It's so formulaic, it's so ridiculous, and yes, Eugene's right. It telegraphs it across the board, like what's happening in this movie. I get the correct me. I might be wrong. Correct me if I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong if we find out of this. What this movie really felt like, given the money that went into it, because the location they shot was, I will say this, I really enjoyed the look of the environment, the environments of the place. A lot of work went into setting up the kind of like the kill arena, the little town, the house. I like environments that are really well designed, that have a lot of detail to them. And this decaying ancient town that is like, the time forgot, and it's weather beaten and rustic, and, people are just barely hanging on. They don't like outsiders. I love setups like that. I love the place that they're shooting in was great. Now, I don't know specifically where they shot that, or if they constructed that whole thing out in the middle of nowhere. But I love that. I love the look of it. Just like it, just set design and art direction were on point with this film. So I will give it that. It looks really pretty, but sadly, it is just no fucking substance.
Well, see, so you get this nice.
That's where I was going. Oh yeah, go ahead, finish your thought, and I remember mine. So go ahead and finish yours.
So you get this nice abandoned town that feels complete. The problem is, I was going to compare this in terms of Halloween 2018. Is Halloween 2018, the cinematography in that movie is immaculate.
Oh yeah,
the cinematography in this looks like shit.
There's some very interesting color choices, in the palette that they use, which I found really fascinating. So they didn't just like sepia everything to be dusty old town. Like when you shoot in Mexico, when you're trying to convey Mexico and you just shoot everything in sepia. So
oh, yeah.
They didn't do anything like that, or they didn't do hard color palettes like steel or blue, or yellow. It's like I just like that it had a very natural feel to it, which I really dug. It's completely fabricated, but I like that it had that natural feel. It kind of conveyed it to me, conveyed it well. It kind of captured what the Michael Bay, the 2003 film did. I thought that captured it really, really well. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning with what was it? The beginning, the one with Jordana Brewster.
Yeah. She dies at the end. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So it captured those kind of elements. I thought kind of well. I thought that they did their best on that one. So, but other than that, the big thing was like the feeling that I got on this, that this movie was made specifically to maintain the rights.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see something like that.
Right.
It's something that felt quick. There was something like the cinematography of Halloween. It just put it that much better, because a lot of times in especially slasher films, cinematography is one of the second-rated things.
Right.
As long as you see the action, as long as it's kind of halfway decent, who cares? And that movie went to the next level. It's like, no, we can shoot a beautiful looking movie and still have everything going on. For example, like the wonder of Michael going through the house and slits the girl's throat. Stuff like that. Like, it was like, oh, that is intricate. That is interesting. That is something that I was not expecting. And in this film, it was like the lighting was bland, basic. You had a budget. They're going to shoot on higher end cameras, so it's not going to look like Acula, for example. But it was nothing that was stunning or nothing that stood out. There was nothing. Even the bus, where they try to stylize it a little bit with like kind of like blue lighting, and they could have done more and just did.
Right. Yeah. So Sarcasm says Weekend Horror. Did you just compliment Michael Bay? For shame. No, I didn't compliment Michael Bay. Because Michael Bay produced that film. I complimented the Michael Bay produced film where the other people in charge of that stuff really did a good job. That's what I complimented.
Listen, Michael Bay knows how to make money.
He does. It's all about because it's all about motherfucking money. That's what it's about. Aaron Reese says we are filmed on sets built in and around Sofia, Bulgaria. Weird. Oh, they shot it in Bulgaria. Well, hey, man, that's probably cheap. That's what it's about. And good to see you. Skits Crasher says good evening. Thanks so much for being here, Skits Crasher. And I saw Extra J as well. Good to see you, Extra J. Thanks for hanging out tonight. We do appreciate it. And wrote it no less name Gabba Gabba to you, bud. Thanks so much for being here. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. I don't think I did. And Joshua Lee has a question for you, bud. Joshua Lee says, so wait, Eugene, what are you saying in terms of shit getting real in regards to this movie?
So it will still get the moniker of shit gets real because of the bus scene. Which
right. Shit definitely got real in the bus.
It got real in the bus. And the bus massacre could have been better because there was some use of like CGI. And I'm a practical person. Give me the practical effect. I want to see the special effects team build intestines, build arms and legs, and all the imperfections of using that kind of stuff versus moments where it's like, oh, CG cut in half, CG arms, CG legs, CG kind of thing. So he gets it because it does have the massacre, and it's still a little fun to watch. But it's like the bare minimum, like shit gets real. Versus shit gets real.
Oh, thank you very much, Sir Kev says, fair enough, Jail. I forgive you. Thank you very much, but I appreciate that. Man. Oh, so yeah. Aaron says it was still more comfortable than a Greyhound bus ride. Good point. Excellent point there.
Amen to that.
But yeah, for what makes Texas Chainsaw Massacre that franchise, for what makes that franchise, all of that was missing. That was my final kind of takeaway. This was a fast and dirty. That's why I got the sense that this film was made specifically so that whoever has the rights can keep the rights. Think of it along the lines of like the Fast and Dirty Fantastic Four film that released. That was absolute fucking garbage. The reason for that is because they pumped that out quick because they wanted to maintain the rights for it. That's pretty much it. Well, so I mean, you do what you have to do, and because everything that makes Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, TCM2, TCM3, the things that make those movies fantastic, which is, even though they kind of slid into a Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of field from, Tobe Hooper's original Nightmare, they kind of slid into the Gordon Lewis kind of area. Despite that fact, there are certain elements that kind of movie requires that the 2003 film captured very effectively, and it looked gorgeous. So that's why the 2003 film, looking back, is really fucking good. That's why Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning was good, but the one with Alexandra Daddario, she was the only good thing about that, for a number of reasons. I'll just say that. But this particular one,
she was like, "Get him, cuz."
Oh, you had to remind me of that shit, dude. I'm talking about no, but it's Alexandra Daddario, man. She's very talented. She is extraordinarily talented. I love her on Mayfair Witches. I really do. I thought she was great. Plus, she's fantastic in the little other roles I've seen her play, like in fucking Burying the Ex. I thought she was great. That her chemistry with Anton Yelchin was amazing. So, but yeah, absolutely terrible. Everything that you come to expect, everything that is necessary for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, none of that is here. The Leatherface that we anticipate is not here. The setup is not here. It's just, like I said, it's a quick and dirty, film made. I think to keep this, so someone can keep the rights is pretty much what I concluded on this one. So if you dig Leatherface, if you're a hardcore Leatherface fan and you just live and die all things Texas Chainsaw Massacre, see it. It's on Netflix, but I warn you, you may be disappointed. I'll just say that.
You know what I would love to see is I would love to see a return back to the art house style. Because like this current generation has only seen the later Texas Chainsaw Massacres. They're like, oh, they can be like over the top, or they're like this or like that. And it's like, go back. I want something that has that feeling of the 1974 art house, more uncomfortable, like the dinner scene, that kind of feel to it. You don't quite know what's going on. And the brutality in that one was so quick.
Right.
That something along those lines where it doesn't even have to be super gory, because the first one isn't that gory.
Right. It's not.
It really is by especially today's standards. So the gore is not necessarily have to be part of that formula, but that would be an interesting angle to see.
Definitely.
But all right, I would like to ask the audience, who is your favorite Leatherface actor?
Ooh, there's been several.
Who has portrayed Leatherface the best? I actually have to go back in. Because my favorite portrayals of Leatherface is the first one. I like Leatherface in the second one, and I do like the 2003 with Jessica Biel. I thought that Leatherface was good. Yeah, Gunnar Hansen.
Gunnar Hansen?
Yeah, Gunnar Hansen.
So Andrew Rivera says Gunnar Hansen. Gunnar Hansen. I honestly, I have to give it to, I'm going to give it to Gunnar Hansen, but I think it was, if I remember correctly, and I want to make sure I cite them right. I want to make sure I cite it correctly. Make sure I get the right actor on that. Andrew Bryniarski. Andrew Bryniarski, I think, did exceptionally well in the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Jessica Biel and Eric Balfour and Erica Learson. I think that Andrew Bryniarski did fantastic in that. But Gunnar Hansen tops it a little bit because obviously he established the character, but he gave a level of, he went the full spectrum, not only terrifying, but also vulnerable, depending upon what face he's wearing. So I like that he went that way. Oh, and Aaron Reese says Gunnar was the only one that got the chainsaw whip right. Nice. Very cool. So yeah, but yeah, definitely have to go with Gunnar Hansen. But definitely let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com who your favorite, or maybe who you think was the best actor to portray Leatherface. Love to hear what people think about that. All right. So up next, our next film. Unfortunately, we don't have a trailer for. There is no trailer. I even looked for a possible TV spot for this, but there wasn't one. So I could not locate a trailer for this film, but that's okay. It released February 20th, 1977, and we have The Spell, as in magic to dispel. One second. I totally fucked up. There it is. We have The Spell. So The Spell was a made-for-television horror film, premiered on NBC as their big event movie of the week back in those days. It was written by Brian Taggart, directed by Lee Phillips, starring the legendary Lee Grant, Susan Myers, Leela Goldoni. Oh, sorry, legendary Lee Grant, Susan Myers, Leela Goldoni, Helen Hunt, and I think what is her first film role, Jack Colvin and James Olsen. The film follows a young girl who, shout out to DuckTales, yep. The film follows a young girl, Rita, who is overweight, shy, 15 years old, and is, being mercilessly bullied at school, and begins to develop, as her anger grows, begins to apparently develop what looks like telekinetic abilities, which she uses to take revenge, which are being used to take revenge on the people that have offended her or, belittled her. And it eventually culminates in a showdown at the end of the movie between, it's 1977, so it culminates in a showdown between her mother and her as they try to stop the carnage. Man, oh man, if ever there was, okay, I first got to say this. I got to say that The Spell, before we dive into, Joshua Lee, before we dive into the obvious there, first and foremost, this story is not one that I think that can be portrayed effectively on television. I don't. I think in my opinion, Brian Taggart, screenwriter Brian Taggart, he wrote the movie, and it was not originally intended to go to television. So Taggart says that he wrote it at the same time that King was writing Carrie. Okay. Then King published Carrie. Then King got Carrie published, his first big publish, and then Brian, and then it was like a very fast turnaround. I think it was like less than 2 years. The book got optioned. Brian De Palma attached. Bam, we have the movie Carrie with Sissy Spacek. Taggart didn't have that much success. Taggart wrote it, intending for it to be a film, and then the process to get it made was slow. And then, unfortunately, before it was able to be made, Carrie came out, and all of a sudden, Carrie was huge. Well, then they saw, oh, okay, so it's popular, so that now we can really release it. So then all of a sudden, the wheels on Taggart's project began to ramp up, but they didn't want to release to theaters because, A, it's going to be, Carrie's already out, so let's release it on television. So Taggart had to kind of pare things down for TV, for the made-for-TV, and that really sapped, and from what I saw, really sapped the life out of this project, out of his project. Now, I just don't think it belonged on television. This should have been a theatrical release, but unfortunately, to go by what Taggart says, Carrie beat him to the punch. And it's weird. He says that King was writing Carrie at the same time he was writing The Spell. Okay, even it's weird because there's no magic in this movie, which is kind of strange.
Yeah,
but there are we can't ignore how many overlaps are in this movie compared to Carrie.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And unfortunately, it comes down to who is first. We've talked about that before, where you have the Burning versus Friday the 13th. Yeah. Even look at like the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell gets credit for inventing the telephone, but actually it's like 6 people that all mailed in patents for the telephone. His was just the first one that got opened. So, and unfortunately, something like that happens. Is you have 2 people, no contact with each other, not bouncing ideas back and forth. They're just writing their way. One person gets it first. They get all the credit for it, and then it gets to the point where then if you try to do yours, regardless if it's done, then you're known as a ripoff, a mock-up, or everybody's going to always compare you to Carrie, and people like to lean towards the originals better. Right. It's just something, unless if you are second, unless yours is so much better than the first one's just going to beat out. And even a couple moments, like I'm sitting there watching it, and one of the things is like, oh, well, they like ridicule her of her weight. If the ideal weight is, let's say, for a girl her age, to say 120 pounds, she may be 125 pounds. Like, I didn't get that like at all. It's you're not getting somebody you're coming in who's like 200 pounds, and it's like, oh man, okay, this is odd. Or even somebody just kind of thick looking. No, I mean, it's like you can't really tell the difference between the two. And
especially at 15 years old, it's kind of like maybe she's going to grow into it. I have no idea, but the girl wasn't that big. She wasn't. Although they did cast her aside from Helen Hunt. And Helen Hunt at that age, I think Helen was kind of like, I think she might have been like 13 or 14 at the time, but Helen was like desperately skinny. So it's kind of like that's the show is like, if you saw Rita on her own, she looked completely normal. This was a 15-year-old girl. And then you see her next to Helen as her sister. It's like, oh, yeah, she is carrying a bit more weight than her sister, but her sister is kind of like, rail thin. You throw it.
Yeah, they do things like dress her up in kind of like baggy clothes and try to.
Right.
It's almost like they kind of have to kind of hide her figure so that, and they make reference to it like a lot too. It's not like it's just a one-time thing where it's like oh, okay, well, she's fat, and like no one ever jokes about it again. They like ridicule her a lot because of it. And I just kind of was like,
Right. It's okay. The kicker on this one is despite the fact that if you've seen any kind of TV movie, you know how TV movies are shot. Especially in the late 70s, you know what kind of cameras that they typically used. You have that kind of like aspect ratio that's perfect for television. That's what they were shooting with. The big problem with this one, and the reason the spell doesn't work, is because of the writing, and it's because they had to make it for television. So obviously it was shifted up a little bit. There's a lot of elements that you're going to recognize from Carrie in there. Obviously, the girl, her getting ridiculed at school by all the other girls. The reference to her being on her period. The issue with even down to the final sequence when she like telekinetically throws the knives at her mother is exactly how Carrie ended when Carrie kills Miss White. Carrie kills Miss White at the very end of that film. So the difference is that this ends on an up note where the mother and the mother apparently also has powers. Like, I have powers too, but I've been hiding them. Ha ha. And it's really, it's so funkily written in order to try and push this thing through. The problem is, the biggest issue is the protagonist. When writing, and this is, I don't know why Taggart had a problem with this, because I've seen other work that Taggart has written, and I couldn't have foreseen an issue like this. The protagonist is obviously the most important character of this. The reason Carrie White works so well is because, one, she's suffering ridicule at school, which every single one of us can identify with. Every one of us at a certain point has felt like an outsider and has been ridiculed for being an outsider. That is what makes Carrie White sympathetic. That is why even when she burns down the school, as in retaliation for what they did with the pig's blood, when she crucifies her mother to the wall with the knives, when she does the things that she does, when she kills John Travolta, bam, in the car, when she does all this, she is sympathetic from point A to point B. From the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, we have sympathy for Carrie White. And the reason for that is because we understand her, okay? We get it. Carrie is a good girl who has this power that she can't control, and that is heightened by her emotions. Okay, there's a lot of allegories there. You see a lot of those in comic books as well. That's why we identify so well with. That's what makes Carrie such a fantastic character. The character of Rita does not do any of this. Rita is obnoxious. Rita is entitled because she has a very, very wealthy family. If you notice Carrie came from a very poor family. Her mother was a fundamentalist evangelical nut job who just spent all their money on fucking Bibles and crucifixes. Okay, because Piper Laurie fucking just killed it in that role. It's just amazing. But we have an entitled, disrespectful, snotty little shit who has all of this money, and is mad because viewers, or whatever. And then even her sister attacks her as fat and like this. And then she develops this power, or she's given this power. Technically, it's the gym teacher. The gym teacher took pity on her and taught her how to, basically made her into a psychic, like taught her how to use psychic powers. And so they begin exacting revenge against people. And then, it's just, we don't give a shit about Rita at any point. The character is not written in a way to make her good. She technically is the fucking villain. And the problem is that the mom is kind of like is almost like the balancing act between the father and the daughter, because the father's an asshole. The daughter's a dick. Her sister is a douche. Helen Hunt plays a pretty effective douche at that age. And then the mom is kind of like, oh, I'm trying to balance everything and make sure everybody's happy. And there's no protagonist here to root for, And so the ending where the mother overpowers the daughter, and it's just like, oh, and then hugs her. It's okay. It's all over. What, did she run out of psychic juice? She still has fuel. She still has power. You know, you just happen to beat her because you're older and you know more, or you're more power. Doesn't matter. You haven't solved shit. You know, the problem still exists. And then that's where the fucking movie ends. It's like, really? You have a psychic fight, you wreck the kitchen, no one really gets fucking hurt, and then she cries, then you hug her, and she's like, oh, I'm so sad. It's like, it's okay, I'm here. I wanted to enjoy the movie. You know? I wanted to enjoy it, but fuck, son of a bitch. The protagonist is so important. If we cannot connect with your lead actor, what the fuck are we doing here? You know?
See, what I'm curious is the fact that Carrie came out first. I wonder how many ideas he had that he felt like he couldn't use anymore.
That's an interesting question.
Because maybe he was like, all right, now I have the protagonist originally come from a wealthy family and she gets bullied by her parents and schools and all this other kind of stuff. And then it was like, oh, well, now I have to come up with a bully a different way, or I have to change the character to this, because it's a very fine line between you're creating something, because he ventures a little too far into Carrie's territory. That's a lawsuit that's waiting to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So it might have been like maybe the best options were taken away from him. And kind of, this is what he felt like was left.
See, that sucks. You got to wonder what kind of influence the studio, like what NBC had on that in the writing process. Kind of like, we need to kind of like, you know, we need to tone this down. Obviously, the worst mistake possibly made was the fucking music choices. Like, it's so fucking weird. It creates such cognitive dissonance when what's going on the screen, it matches is in no way matched by the tension building or by the scoring that they use. The scoring in this film was fucking atrocious. It was absolutely the worst. You know, up there, it's kind of like that kind of energy is not what you want to convey when the actors are doing what they're doing on the screen. It's fucking ridiculous. Brian De Palma brilliantly matched like a minimalist score in Carrie, because we're supposed to be with Carrie, who is essentially alone. She has nothing to reference, which is why when she lashes out, it's so extreme and people get hurt so badly, because Carrie is traumatized. She's damaged, like damn near beyond repair, by her mother, by her peers. She has one friend, and that friend's hands are tied, you know, and she really can't do shit. So, because who could possibly understand a girl with burgeoning psychic powers? So when it comes down to it, we understand everything about Carrie, why she lashes out, and why it's so extreme. This is just, you know, I'm a petulant child, and I have the power to throw shit around the room. Nah, you know, whatever. I couldn't care. I couldn't care about shit, and it fucking just, you know, ended terribly. The scoring was awful. I mean, classic 70s shooting. You have the camera, you know, the technology. It was what you expect. It was like, you know, watching, you know, Kolchak the Night Stalker, that same kind of like, you know, grain stuff. But fucking hell, man.
I mean, it's a made-for-TV movie. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, it's made for TV, yeah. But there have been some good ones, you know? The vampire one that we saw. You know, there have been some decent ones that know where the director knows how to utilize light and shadow in order to convey tension, knows how to score this motherfucker so that we actually maintain the energy through scenes, so that we can actually identify with the characters that we have going on. None of that is here. None of it. It's all, I mean, it's like, if it is a Carrie rip, it's the worst fucking possible rip you could make. Because all of the elements, yeah.
On top of that, he's going against Brian De Palma.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad.
Directors.
You got fucking like Lee Phillips going up, like Lee Phillips, who's it had kind of a career, but you know, nothing really huge stands out. You know, mostly it was television director, Dick Van Dyke Show, Peyton Place, Fugitive, Twilight Zone. So a good sense of it, like how to shoot for television, but come on, man, De Palma, there's no fucking way.
They're not in the same league. They're just not. I mean, and Brian De Palma goes on to bigger films and all kinds of stuff.
You knew it was gonna be bad when the spontaneous combustion scene, you know, had to be essentially. It was basically a person, like, you know, when the camera catches the weird angle and the person like freaking out. Like it was very Peter Jackson-esque, kind of like, oh, like in the screen when the person is spontaneously combusting and then there's like smoke. You know, I was like, okay, but there's no fire. So it's really, really bad when you have to convey the horror of spontaneous combustion verbally. And you have to basically have one of your characters describe what happened so that the audience can imagine it. Because all we saw was a person go like, ah, with some like, some dark lighting, and then smoke, and then they run off camera and they die.
Can you imagine if they did that for the prom scene at Carrie?
Oh, fucking crazy. Oh,
you have like smoke in front of the lens, and just people kind of run around. You never see fire.
Exactly. Sir Kev says that god-awful theme that they replayed 40 times, even on the piano at the party. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And Sarcasm says, I disagree. Carrie 2 was the worst ripoff of Carrie. Yeah, I can see that. I could. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so that's the question I want to ask the audience. I want to know, and let us know here in the live chat or in the comments, do you think, despite what Taggart says, do you think that The Spell was a Carrie ripoff? Agree or disagree? The Spell is a Carrie ripoff. Do you agree or disagree with that statement? Do you think it was a ripoff, or do you think it was just kind of like the creative miasma? You know, they conjured up the same kind of idea simultaneously, and I saw Chuck Norris. What the fuck? And Stephen King just got there first. Stephen King got lucky. He got published. They picked it up, and bam, and they were off to the races. Very similar to Sean S. Cunningham and the Weinsteins. When Cunningham came up with Friday the 13th, they were working on The Burning. Friday the 13th beat him to the punch. The Burning kind of fell to the wayside. Even though it's a cult classic, it is an amazing fucking film. But Friday the 13th, made it there. Let us know down in the comments or at weekinhorror@gmail.com if you think that The Spell if you think or don't think that The Spell was a straight ripoff of Carrie. What do you think, Bo? Was it a ripoff? Did Taggart rip it off?
I think it's more of a tragedy where he just got kind of forced into a corner, and they're kind of like, well, you're already so far in, like he was just stuck. Unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah. I know. Okay. It's hard. I know it's hard to think that people can come up with the same idea kind of simultaneously and run with it. It's happened to me. I'm still on the fence as to whether or not my idea made it somewhere else and someone changed it. They ran with it. Fuck you, Crawl. But I don't. So it's happened to me. I've talked to other directors it's happened to. The director of Night Things was kind of surprised when I let him know about the show From. He was kind of like, holy shit. Like that's my premise. And I was like, because his movie came out 10 years before From did, or maybe 11 years before From did. And I was kind of like, you see? And he was like, oh, that's so fucking weird. So you never know. But honestly, I kind of have to side with Left-Handed Jedi here. He says, gut tells me it's a ripoff. My gut says it's a ripoff. There is just way too many similarities. Way too similarities. The only big difference is that there is never a male lead that comes in to give Rita the kind of balance and the hope that things can be better, because that's the arc. Is like even though it's all set up, the male lead comes in, gives Carrie hope, and then that hope is built naively, and then the betrayal with the pig's blood is what is the big trigger event. Okay, we have to have our character has to go on an arc, but all we see is petulant child mad because if her teacher teaches everyone else to be psychic, she'll no longer be special anymore. And then the end, it's just fucking, it's just weak. It's just weak as shit. Aaron Reese says the novel came out in 1974 and was hugely popular. You wouldn't need a leaked treatment. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Sarkaz says the timing is just too coincidental to not have been at least a leaked treatment. Likely, he read it, possibly. I don't know. There's just way too many similarities. Way too much overlap.
It could have been. Well, obviously, we'll never know for sure. It's just because I know it's happened to me before, where I will have come up with an idea, and then literally someone's been like, "Oh, you mean something like Serenity?" And I was like, "What?" yeah, you ever heard of the show Firefly? And I was like, no. Because my idea was a sci-fi about a crew that the captain was on the losing side of a war, so now he lives on the outskirts of space, taking odd jobs, and eventually has to go against the unified, whatever I called it at the time, which ends up leading to like its downfall. And like I never didn't see Serenity, never heard of Firefly, never anything like that beforehand. And I was writing this thing, and a buddy of mine's like, "Oh yeah, Firefly," and I watched the first 5 minutes when they're in the battle, and I was like, "Stop, delete story, just."
Let us know in the comments below if you believe that Eugene never saw Firefly, and it was not, and that his script was not a rip, was not a rip off Joss Whedon's work. Let us know. Let us know in the comments below, or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Kind of a bonus question there. I know that it can happen. Come on, and as many people work in this industry, as many ideas are thrown around. Aaron Reese says no new ideas, only new interpretations. I agree with that, Aaron. You know, it's just kind of like mine. You know, people trapped in place with alligators during hurricane. That's essentially what my treatment was. That's essentially what my script was. My script was person trapped in place during hurricane with giant alligator. Crawl was 2 people trapped in place during hurricane with lots of alligators, lots of normal-sized alligators. That was that, you know? I mean, they changed it a little bit. Plus, my protagonist was a black woman, and their protagonist was a white chick. So, and with Barry Pepper in it. So, you know, either way, it happens. You know, sometimes if I ever get the money, I'm gonna shoot fucking Crawl. I will, or I'm gonna shoot. I fucking called it Crawl. What the fuck? If I ever get the money, I'm gonna shoot my movie. If I ever get it, I will shoot that movie because I want to see that movie done, and I want Sonequa Martin Green in that role because I saw her in Walking Dead. You know, back when that kicked off, and I saw that, I was like, this woman can do anything, and I want her in that role. I envisioned her in that role. So, you know, that's how long ago I wrote that movie. So fucking long. Holy shit. So, but yeah. Sir Cam says, I forgot that I saw things when I was stoned too. Sir Cam says, I forgot that I saw things when I was stoned too. Don't feel bad about it, Eugene. And Rodinilla Name says Firefly was just the Millennium Falcon with a full crew. Ooh, Joss Whedon did a Star Wars rip.
Hey, you know it worked.
All right, so let's move on to what do we got up next? This is the big one.
So we got a weird one.
Yes. Oh, okay. You think who directed it? Yeah. Oh, and by the way, they just jumped in, and it's the first time I've seen Most Chops is here. It says, hello all. Looks like I'm a bit late to find out what's going on in this week of horror. Good to see you, Most Chops. Thanks so much for hanging out. I think it's the first time I've seen you pop into the live chat. So we appreciate seeing new names. Thank you very, very much. So, but
thank you for joining us.
Take it away, Eugene.
So next up, we have Lost Highway, which was released February 21st, 1997. Roll it. It's such a good movie.
We've met before, haven't we?
I don't think so.
At your house, don't you remember?
No, I don't.
As a matter of fact, I'm there right now.
That's crazy, man.
Call me. I like that. But
think there's no such thing as a bad coincidence.
I like to remember things my own way, not necessarily the way they happened.
Well, that's your first problem.
Someone broke in and taped us while we slept.
Is that you? Are both of them you?
We have to get out of here.
Why didn't you tell me anything?
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Robert Loggia.
If I ever found out somebody was making out with her.
He'll kill us.
I told you I was here.
How'd you do that?
Ask me.
That is Lost Highway, directed by the esteemed David Lynch, starring Bill Palma, Patricia Arquette, Balthazar Getty, Robert Blake, Natasha Grissom Wagner, Gary Busey, and Robert
Loggia.
Loja. I got close.
Robert Loggia. If people remember the Family Guy reference, it was like, so what's your name? Robert Loggia. How do you spell that? R, as in Robert Loggia. Fucking love Robert Loggia. There's actually a funny fucking story that I kind of, before we dive into this one, before you go, so because the description on this movie is really fucking weird, but it's really, really entertaining. Apparently, Robert Loggia wanted the role of Frank in Blue Velvet. Okay, so David Lynch was doing Blue Velvet, and Robert Loggia read the script, and he wanted the role of Frank, and unfortunately, he lost out to Dennis Hopper. So Dennis Hopper got that role, and apparently, Loggia was so pissed off that Hopper got the role that he launched into an insane, like, profanity-laced tirade at David Lynch. Like, he went off about about Hopper getting that role. That tirade is what informed the road rage scene when Loggia drives the guy off the road and then rips him out of his car and pistol whips the shit out of him and is like, ah! That whole scene was inspired by Loggia ripping David Lynch a new asshole for giving Dennis Hopper the role in Blue Velvet, which I think is fucking hilarious because it's so on brand. It was so on brand for Robert Loggia. And good to see you, Jefferson Spatchcock. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. I knew you would love Lost Highway, absolutely. But I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's a funny little anecdote, a little bit kind of behind the scenes thing about the relationship. Robert Loggia's an intense motherfucker, and I could totally see him calling up fucking David Lynch is kind of like, I'm kind of an artist, man. This is what it is. Loggia calling him up like a fucking mafia boss. You cocksucker motherfucker. And I was like, holy shit. And then he cast him in a movie. He's like, dude, what you did to me, do that again.
I liked it.
I loved it. I love the energy. Bring it. Actually, if it's Lynch, I love the energy. You need to bring more energy just like that. Bring it like you did when you ripped me a new butthole on the phone. I think let me know if my Lynch impression sucked balls, because I feel like it wasn't quite there. But go ahead, EG. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So basically, because that's a little bit of a weird one, it follows two storylines, and you have one who is a jazz musician, and he's tortured by the idea of his wife having an affair. And the other one is a mechanic who is dealing with a woman who happens to have a gangster boyfriend. That's kind of the best way to probably sum it up. Because it can definitely go in place, but shit definitely gets real in this one.
Okay, so that's the kicker on this movie. Obviously, the movie is deeply and profoundly surreal. I think this comes down to, and Jefferson Spatchcock brings up, Robert Blake isn't so much a bad guy as he is one of Lynch's eyebrowless harbingers of doom. Agree on that. I love the fact that it's also kind of interesting how Robert Blake got that look, is that David Lynch gave him basically gave him a blank check. He just said, go, like, you come up with the style. The style, how he talks, all the stuff, I'm putting it in your hands, Robert Blake. You go and do it. And Robert Blake decided, I know what I'm going to do. So he goes and he shaves his eyebrows off, parts his hair down the center, and then uses white kabuki makeup on his face, darkens his lips a bit, and then dresses in a kind of like a tight black suit. And then he went and gave that to David Lynch. David Lynch was like, that's perfect. I love it. And then they went and there you have it. Then you have Robert Blake. So, which is weird because this is a movie where essentially, the wife gets killed. Life imitating art, can we say? Sorry. Sorry, Blake. So nonetheless, it is definitely surrealistic in its presentation, in line with, but if you look at Lynch's work, obviously this is part of his Los Angeles trilogy with Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire. So, and the one thing I love about this movie, and love about what Lynch said about this, is that the movie, he said he deliberately intend, now I don't know, take this with a grain of salt, this is from Lynch's mouth himself, that we as the audience are allowed to interpret this movie any way we want. There are some people who think that there is a cohesive narrative, a cohesive, strong narrative that makes the whole thing make sense. There are some people who say that really it's kind of like a music video where there's a series of images that speak to what the artist is conveying at a particular given moment in time. And so that can shift given the context of the scene. And so the whole thing is completely ambiguous. It can be whatever, whatever it is. So whatever you want it to be in that respect, which I think is, and Richard Pryor. Yeah, this was Richard Pryor's last movie. So the last movie he ever starred in, which is an interesting scene with him and Balthazar Getty. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of this one right here, is that all the elements play so well together. The way it's shot, the way it's acted, the way it's the way it's fucking scored. Man, I wish we had Johnny's take on this one. The way it was scored and what Lynch was trying to say as far as this, it's the ultimate subjectivity of art. It's like looking at a piece of art, and you take away what you can from it. Like,
which is something that I really enjoyed, because, by the way, the soundtrack of this film is phenomenal, because you're featuring
fucking phenomenal.
David Bowie, Rammstein, Nine Inch Nails, Smashing Pumpkins, and it just keeps going from there. So even going with, like, hey, this is just a series of music video. This is like a disproportionate music video or psychedelic adventure, completely fits and makes sense for that. Because I mean, as soon as the soundtrack came out, I bought the CD.
Oh yeah. Well, you see, okay, so it's fascinating because for those, she didn't get mentioned. She didn't get mentioned in the original cast, but for those who don't know, she had a very, very small role in this film. Richard Pryor had a very small role in this, and the film also stars Jack Keeler and Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins is in this film. Giovanni Ribisi's in this film. He mentioned Gary Busey. Lou Eppolito is in this, who is actually a cop who moonlighted for the mob back in the day. And Marilyn Manson and Twiggy Ramirez were also in this, playing porn stars. So, because the film is extremely graphic in both its depictions of violence and of sex. Not to mention that Michael Massee is in this. Michael Massee played Fun Boy in The Crow. You might remember him from that. He was in this as well. So there's a lot of people that you will recognize. And one of them, she had a very, very tiny role. It's kind of a blink and you miss it moment. Is I'll make sure I don't want to forget. Son of a bitch. Jennifer Syme was Jennifer Syme. And this is one of those movies that kind of like that kind of like dropped at a time when there was some interesting shit going on in Hollywood at the time. There's connective tissue all over the place. It's almost like this film is imitating kind of like Los Angeles life, which is weird, both in its making and in its depiction. Jennifer Syme, for people who don't know, was basically a music executive, and she worked as a personal assistant for a number of bands. I think for Red Hot Chili Peppers, for I can't remember his name. Anyway, she was heavily in the music scene. She is also widely considered the woman who was the love of Keanu Reeves' life. She was the one who tragically died in a car accident and fundamentally kind of shifted Keanu Reeves, because apparently, he was devastated by losing her. They were friends for a long time. They dated, and apparently she was the love of his life. It was Jennifer s5e who got the attention of David Lynch via a short that she did, and that caught his attention. They became friends, and it was Jennifer s5e who was, because of her contacts in the music industry, influenced the soundtrack to this movie. The reason that we got Reznor and Manson and Bowie and all the people that we did as a part of this movie is because of Jennifer s5e informing Lynch about these bands and saying, hey, check out these bands. I think these will work for your script. He listened to them and said, yes, let's run. He was like, yes, let's run with this. I love these songs. And I thought that was beyond fucking cool, because a lot of the soundtrack, a number of the songs were written specifically for Lost Highway, which I think is really fucking cool. That Reznor and Manson, I would say The Perfect Drug and Driver Down were specifically composed like for this movie, and then of course you also had like Lou Reed, Smashing Pumpkins, and Rammstein on as well. And I love how he utilized Rammstein in this to the effect in the scenes that he did. It's fucking great. The balance is amazing. So.
Well, it is really interesting you bring up the music scene, because the music scene in the early to mid 90s was actually pretty small. They had these nightclubs, some of them were dive bars, some of them were a little bit bigger, and these were the places to play. And you had like Nine Inch Nails, you had Manson, you had Tool, you had Rage Against the Machine, you have photos of Tom Morello in a dive bar watching Maynard sing of Tool, like in 92, 93, and then they would hang out like afterwards. And then on top of that, and when one of them got big, then you get the introduction to Deftones. So you just had this community of all these bands that was just together. So pretty much all you had to do was get into that one small group, which clearly she did. And then you get all these big name bands because they all just hung out and knew each other. It's not like today where you have such this online streaming and there's millions upon millions of people that on Spotify, whatever. You had to work to get noticed in the industry back then, because you had to pass the gatekeepers of record labels.
Right.
So it's amazing that all of this was able to come together. You get one of the best soundtracks that's ever come out.
So something that's important, I think, and I didn't want to dive too deep into it, but Aaron Reese makes mention of it, is that David Lynch essentially advocates for transcendental meditation, for tapping directly into the subconscious, and then puts it on film as directly as possible while attaching narrative to it. And I agree with that. You see a lot of those themes in you see them in Blue Velvet, you see them in, obviously in Eraserhead, you see them in Twin Peaks. Across the board, he has utilized that technique to great effect, and to convey these stories that are as much about context as they are about concrete events. That it's situational stuff that you have to kind of like suss out for yourself how you'll be playing with your own mind and shit like that. Which is why I've always been a huge fan of David Lynch. I love what he tries to convey, and I love trying to like figure. There are movies you can spend time with, which is what's brilliant. That's what I like most about Lost Highway. It's the movie that you can spend an inordinate amount of time with. I have my own narrative when it comes to like what's going on in this, and that a lot of it is allegorical, that what we are seeing is essentially a movie about identity, and that when we how our identities, or how we cope, how our identity, the identity we think we have, the one we put forward, how we cope with trauma to a degree that it fundamentally alters our scope of reality, which I think is what Bill Pullman is going through, all the way up to the extreme nature that he actually shifts, that he disappears for a while and someone else is there, and then they carry on, but there's a unique connectivity throughout all of it. and which I think there's a connectivity between all of us, which I think is portrayed by Patricia Arquette's character, in that she's playing essentially the same person with two different names. That's always there, that the thread is always there. So it's really, really fascinating shit. That's a movie that can be deeply explored. Like, what exactly is the role of, Robert Blake? What exactly is happening with Bill Pullman's character, with Frank? What is happening there? And not to mention with the frenetic, manic scenes that David is known for putting into his films, like, in Blue Velvet with Frank's big freak out there, with the road rage scene in this one. Every single one of his movies has one of those big, like Killer Bob in Twin Peaks, provided all the mania you needed. He covers the breadth of the human experience, which is fucking beautiful. Sarcasm says, at the risk of repeating myself, David Lynch is the undisputed master of what the fuck did I just watch? Agreed.
Yep.
Amazing stuff.
So, we have talked about Robert Blake and the Mystery Man. I want to ask the audience, who was the Mystery Man? Because it's very, I want to say unclear or vague, but it very leaves her to decide who the Mystery Man was.
It could be taken so many ways. Okay, so I don't know who you in the live chat, y'all in the live chat, or when if you're watching this after the fact. I know everybody's got their opinions. Okay, I believe, if I were to put it into kind of like psychological terms, I believe that Robert Blake, the character of Robert Blake, is Bill Pullman's character. Son of a bitch, I lost it. Fred. I believe that Robert Blake is Fred's id. Because going back and watching this again, because I hadn't seen it in years, going back and watching this again, I saw parallels that were drawn by the writer of Mr. Brooks. That I think Lost Highway was an influence on that Kevin Costner serial killer film, Mr. Brooks. I think Lost Highway influenced that film in some ways. I think that the mystery, like the Mystery Man that Robert Blake was playing, that's literally what he's credited as in the credits. I think he is literally the personification of Fred's id. So what Fred wants, what Fred demands, and only that. And that's why he comes and goes as necessary. When Fred is off, the id shows up. When Fred's in control, the id isn't there. Or when circumstances have gone beyond his control, he doesn't show up. And he only shows up when Fred finally gets his ultimate satisfaction, and that is when he kills Mr. Eddie. When he kills Mr. Eddie at the end, when he kills him in the desert, when that happens, the id shows up. When he's chasing down the girl, after he converts from Pete back to Fred in the desert after they had their big sex scene, which fucking use of Dance of the Dead, man, holy shit, God, fuck this, the soundtrack in this was amazing. And so after that big scene, and then Patricia Arquette walks up into the cabin, and then he converts back to Fred, and then it's like he recognizes what's going on, and that rage comes in, and then there he is again. I think it's his id personified. That's my interpretation. I could be wrong.
So
I was kind of wordy on that. So go ahead.
Because I was thinking the same thing. I got the vibe that it was part of Fred's psyche. Now, mine, it wasn't necessarily as depth as it was the id, but I always felt like the Mystery Man was the one that it filled in the gaps for various things that he chose not to remember, that Fred chose not to remember, but the brain remembers. Almost that kind of thing where like we repress certain things or we choose not to remember, but the brain still learns it or it's still there. So that way you have these moments that it's like he wants to forget, but the brain is like, no, you're going to do this.
Okay.
So that was just kind of my take on it.
So Sarcasm says, Temptation Incarnate. Interesting. Here's an interesting parallel. And that kind of reminds me of this, Sarcasm, what you just said right there. Do you think, and let us know in the comments if you agree with this, do you think that there is a parallel between the Mystery Man and Killer Bob? in the kind of like David Lynch mental universe. Because in Twin Peaks, Killer Bob was essentially an entity from another kind of dimension that these evil entities can sometimes jump, across, and they can possess people and make them do shit. And I think that there's a parallel though, because there's a scene when Fred is talking to Andy at the party, and he says, "Who is that guy? Guy dressed in black?" And then Andy looks up at him, and he recognizes him, and he answers his question. I think that's why I think it's his id, because the deeper the things that drive us to that degree, Lynch has always implied that he believes there's a kind of like external force that plays into that somehow. And I think that there is kind of that whatever is driving Fred's rage and creating his confusion, like it did very much with Leland in Twin Peaks, is that which is possessing the individual known as who's the mystery man. Okay, possessing whoever that body is, which is why he's able to talk to him, because he called his house. He didn't hear him over the phone. He heard him from within himself.
Yeah.
That's my kind of like, I think there might be a parallel there. Explore it in the comments. Let us know in the comments, because we got one more we got to talk about, and we're getting a little long. So Left-Handed Jedi says, reminds me of the Mask of the Red Death with Vincent Price at the dance at the end. Very interesting. And Sarkaz says, absolutely, Lynch has written a similar character in nearly all of his films. Examples available on request. Totally agree with that. Absolutely. So yeah. Yes, Aaron Reese says, this just occurred to me, but have you heard of a tulpa? Yes. Tulpas, thought forms, entities created out of sheer will of imagination. Yes. So possible that he manifested him, that the mystery man is literally made manifest by Fred. By Fred's rage and Fred's anxiety has literally manifested this entity that is essentially a part of him, but is external to him as well. He's externalizing that which he cannot internalize. And because he's been doing it for a while, that's why Andy recognized the guy in black. That he'd seen him before, because Fred's been doing this for a minute, which is why his jazz is so, like when he's a jazz player, because his jazz is so frenetic, is that he's getting that shit out. So, you can take this a number of ways. We could end up talking about this movie for another fucking hour, I swear to God. So, we really could. But, so let us know your thoughts. Deep, deep film that you can go for miles on. So let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Love to hear what you think about this masterpiece of a film. Fucking love this movie. I love everything David Lynch does. I mean, even loved Inland Empire, but, Mulholland Drive is still kind of like Naomi Watts fucking killed it. So let's move on to our next one, our last one for the night, released February 23rd, 2007. We have the After Dark Horrorfest entry, The Abandoned. Let's check out this trailer. Let's cue up the terror tube.
Take him in the north! Take him in the north! He doesn't have knives! Go in! This man's got knives!
Do you read Sutter Kane? What?
What a suck way to die.
I've spent half my life trying to find my parents. It was like they never existed.
Our country has been through a lot. Governments change. Things get lost sometimes. People get lost. Your mother's death certificate. Apparently she was murdered just after you were born.
In this forest.
Do you know anything about my mother's place?
No one has been here for more than 40 years. What do you expect to find?
Some clue, perhaps.
Stands a house.
Hello?
We're here for the same reason.
Do we look like brother and sister to you?
Twins, actually.
It knows.
What is this place?
Do you really want to know
who you are.
Have you seen the cribs? See the name? Mine is on the other one.
It knows.
Hey.
How you will die.
What were those things?
They say when you see yourself, that it's time to die.
Mine was soaked through like it fell in the river.
They are our futures. We are haunting ourselves. We are supposed to die in this house. At midnight, everything will be recreated as it was on the night of the murders. Only this time, we'll die as we were always meant to.
It's not real!
The abandoned.
Your brothers with us now. We're still missing one member of the family.
Well, that's a whole movie.
That's pretty much the movie, and they pretty much told you what's gonna. The trailer fucking spoils this whole thing, I swear. But fortunately, it came out in 2006, which is Eugene's favorite period of time, favorite decade for horror films. So, directed by Nacho Cerda, written by Nacho Cerda, Kareem Hussein, and Richard Stanley. We know that name. Starring Anastasia Hilly, Carlos Rieg, Valentine Ganev, and of the lovely, I love everything, Carl Roden, who was the best Frankenstein possible in Frankenstein's army. You may remember him as the lawyer in Blade 2, but he's done a ton of shit. You know, he's fantastic. So this entry to the After Dark Horrorfest, when that came out, follows a woman who's an American film producer who returns to her homeland of Russia to discover the truth about her family history. This was a multi-country production where it is, I think it was between Bulgaria, Spain, and the United Kingdom is who put this together. So, unfortunately, unlike the other After Dark Horror Fest, this film, I think, is one of the ones that kind of falls to the wayside. It was not as great. I love a lot of the After Dark horror films. There were some really fantastic ones in there. But this one, unfortunately, I think what hampered this is because Nacho Cerda and Kareem Hussein, I don't see Richard Stanley doing this. I really don't, because as a writer, Richard Stanley's always tried to be as original as possible to try and bring his own ideas and his own kind of, envision or his own vision to what he's writing. So, but obviously it came out the exact same year, but it was heavily in development, heavily publicized. And I'm talking about Silent Hill. So the whole, the house coming, reforming itself and altering at specific times, and, the foreshadowing of that I think is a rip completely off of Silent Hill, because it was known about 2 years beforehand that Christoph Gans would be directing the Silent Hill film. And then that kind of got popular. It was pretty hot at the time. And then all of a sudden I see that in this. It's essentially a haunted house film. It's a two-hander haunted house film that leaves way too much to the imagination and doesn't explore a lot of the themes that were necessary to make it scary, but instead explored a bunch of shit that would be more serviceable in a drama, like the ties that bind, connections to family, long lost brother, the dichotomy between America and Russia at the time, especially 40 years ago. There's a lot of elements in here that I don't think that would have made interesting filler for a horror film to provide backdrop, but instead they take front stage, and they then because of the depth of them and how much time they spend on them, it overshadows the horror elements. So it's odd. So it's almost like a drama with horror elements attached to it, with a couple of scenes of some pretty gnarly violence.
This movie, it was boring. It was. And it could have been so much better, so many different ways. And this is kind of the way it took. The reason is because if you're going to do a haunted house movie, then it needs to be atmospheric. And the atmosphere here never sold me. You're not really getting that much disturbing imagery. There's nothing memorable about this film at all. Like you're just there's no moments that's like, oh wow, that just really pulls you in because it focuses on the drama stuff of this is the family that's going on. This is their ties that they have together. The whole point when the house like resets itself. The CGI looked terrible, and it wasn't just because it came out in 2007. There's some good films that came out in 2007 that have great CGI. Apparently,
VHS did that shit better.
Yeah, VHS was better. It just wasn't there. It wasn't. I'm watching this film and I'm like, okay, that's boring. How many times does she have to fucking jump out of a window? Oh yeah. Oh, we gotta escape. He's got to barricade the door. Oh, now she goes to the window. Okay, now the spirits are chasing her. She's got to jump to the window again. Looks like the same window too. Yeah. It didn't feel lazy. Like The Butcher's lazy, like pure lazy filming. This felt more like it didn't really have a vision and a voice for itself. That was my takeaway from it.
Well, After Dark Horrorfest, this was I struggled to understand why this particular one was selected for the 2006. The 2006 one was the inaugural After Dark Horrorfest, and in that one, there were some really, really solid ones. You had Wicked Little Things, which had Scout Taylor Compton in it, which was a pretty creepy ghost story. You had Unrest, which was decent. You had Penny Dreadful, which I thought was fantastic because that starred son of a bitch, Rachel Miner, who's unfortunately, she's battling MS but she's a fantastic actress. Knew her from Supernatural. The Hamiltons, The Grave Dancers, Dark Ride was decent, and this was kind of like the one that really didn't sit, for some strange reason. And so it got in, and I don't know. It's maybe because they needed 8, and this was like the next best one. I myself found it was kind of like lackluster. It drags in way too many places because what they're trying to convey. Because I think that what the writers and what the director are trying to convey in this is not a story that belongs in a horror. That belongs fully in a horror film. I understand these themes informing a character and then making decisions based upon their internalization of the themes, but like I said, it doesn't feel like it's where it should be. I will say this, and I will agree with sarcasm. The only redeeming quality of the film is the makeup effects on the ghosts. Props to the people. The practical effects are actually fairly decent. The practical effects were on point. They knew what they were doing there. There was some good shit in there, as far as the practical makeup effects. But the CGI was awful. The whole house coming back together, it was just kind of like, why? Just not necessary. A lot of the things that would have made it effective were cut out because of obviously because of a lack of budget, because they didn't have a lot of money. Look at what they're shooting. It's a single location in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it's a dilapidated place that they can have fun with and play with. But ultimately, it's kind of like, it's such a shame because Carl Ronen's the acting is decent. Carl Roden was decent. Anastasia Haley was not bad. I liked the story that they were trying to tell, but they left it with too much ambiguous. Like, how is the father doing this? How is the father setting it up so that the kids, his children, now grown-up children, can die and join them in this afterlife, and it's like this imposed purgatory? Where did that all come from? There's obviously this weird supernatural element to it where the father is ended, but it never explains any of that. It literally just goes, mom wants to leave dad freaks out, dad tries to kill family, mom escapes with the children, mom dies, and then the children get adopted by another family, and then they end up getting split up, and now they come back to find each other. And then there's that ham-handed outro of her daughter of her daughter speaking, because the film opens with the daughter speaking at the beginning to kind of like set the tone. It's kind of like a prologue. So the daughter kind of is speaking, sets the tone, and then the weird ham-handed, so heavy-handed outro to kind of like justify the name of the movie, which is weird. So what do you think? Do you think this is a case of too many cooks in the kitchen?
Maybe that it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say. And usually in a situation like this, I fault it with the director overall. Maybe there just wasn't a clear vision. Maybe he focused on the wrong elements. Maybe the studio, he's talking about a multi-country effort put together. The problem when you have it's a multi-country effort with a film is certain things only work in certain cultures. And I found this out I was doing a 48-hour film race once. And actually the one we met, the one you and I worked on where we met.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
by the way, a little trivia about me. That was the first time I've ever got a chance to write comedy.
Really?
And
didn't know that.
I'd never written comedy before. I'd always written psychological horror, psychological shit, dark shit. And I was like, comedy. Let's write. Okay, I'll write a comedy. And I took that was the first time I've ever written comedy. Realized I actually can do it. It was raw, but it was raw, but you know, it's coming up the show at the top of my head. But what a way to like dive in. But go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah. So the editor, so you have JL writing, I was a cinema on it, and then the editor was of India. And India looks great. He was born and raised in India, came over here to work in film very recently. So he goes and he starts editing the film, and he edits the film not the way the director wants. And he's like, but in my culture, this is funny.
But
okay. He's like, well, but in the US, it's not funny. You have to, the timing's different. So when you have, that's one of the things I'm kind of thinking is like you have this multicultural approach where some things work in some cultures and don't work in other cultures because of the way we're raised.
Right.
So then what happens is you get, if you try to please everybody, you please no one. And it kind of got lost in this ambiguous blob of a mess of a movie.
I did not think about it in those terms. The fact that this is a Bulgaria, the fact that this was an international production between, I think it was Bulgaria. What did I say before? Bulgaria, Spain, and the United Kingdom. Obviously, their horror influences are going to be different. The director Nacho Cerda, if you look at, he's best known for a short film called Aftermath. That was kind of like his claim to fame. He really hasn't done anything else. Like he did Aftermath, and that it's a very controversial short film that he did. Very, very graphic. And then he directed this, and it hasn't really done anything else since then. Since I think he was planning on doing something back in 2011, but has not released anything. I can't find much information about him. So, I honestly don't know in that respect. But I could see why the cultural interpretation would lead to a film that was a bit drier and focused on things that we wouldn't anticipate as being in a kind of story like this. So that makes total sense. Now I think it was, and Richard Stanley as well. I mean, I get that because Richard Stanley's kind of, from all reports, Richard Stanley is a very, very kind of like overbearing presence. He's not a bad guy. Well, no, he is a bad guy. There's a reason why he, Spectrovision cut ties with him, but he's not an asshole on set, but he's just a very overbearing kind of person. And, in a tug of war between Nacho and Richard Stanley's going to win. So you got like Richard Stanley doing an interpretation of what Nacho's interpretation of their kind of horror, which I think too many cooks in the kitchen, too many cultural references competing against one another with too many egos is kind of what drags.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, is what drags this movie down. The idea is solid. Like the premise could work. I just think the execution was abysmal on this one. I mean, given the premise, a woman cut off from her family, goes on a self-seeking journey to just rediscover her roots and reconnect with her family and find her family. Now that she's got this opportunity, she's going to find her family. And the conflict with the daughter plays into that. That should have been a bigger play than it was in this. In this movie, it's a footnote. And then you follow this character as they're on this solo journey where they're discovering themselves, and they wind up coming across like this horrific scenario in which the previous events of their life were ultimately were like horrifically tragic. There was murder and death and like, pagan shit or witchcraft or whatever. And that the reason that she was separated was because someone stole her away and whatever. That would have been a much more interesting thing. I think, and I think that would have been a much more entertaining. That premise is solid, but the only thing the thing that can fuck up a premise is too many people thinking that their version of the premise is the best. So I think that's what really kind of jacked this movie up. It could have been so much better. It really could have been. I hate movies that are wasted potential,
Yeah, because it sucks because even the crew still puts in the same amount of work. It takes just as much work to make a bad movie as it does to make a good movie. So you always hope that it's a good movie, and then when you have issues with the people at the top, that can just tank this.
Right. Exactly, yeah. Sarcasm brings up, I think, too many plot holes. Why would your own ghost try to kill you if it was already aware of how you die? I just didn't buy anything about the scripting. Yeah, it's just silly, I think that's why I said, that's why I think too many egos in the kitchen, I think, is the problem here. Not enough streamlining in the above the line, knowing whose vision this is, where it's going to go, what's happening here. Maybe too much capitulation from the people who were from the individual. Nacho should have been the guy that everybody, acquiesced to. It's his vision. The writer typically doesn't, depending upon politics, the writer typically doesn't walk in and be like, this is how I want it. You hear stories about that, where the writer comes in and says, why are you changing my fucking movie? This way, blah, blah, blah. The shit went down with Stephanie Meyer, and I think with Stephanie Meyer and Twilight, and the shit went down with the chick who wrote 50 Shades of Grey. There's a reason the authors are not brought on set to be consultants, because their job's done. Now it's time for the movie to get made, and it's a different beast, convey video like that, whatever. So, I think too many cooks. Too many cooks. I think that's the issue here.
Too many cooks. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the primary issue with this one. So you got the CTA.
So no, well, that did the CTA Lost Highway. But anyways,
oh, you did? No, so it's my CTA. My bad. I introduced the one. Yeah, I introduced it. Yes, I did. So that's what I want, because this movie is technically a Euro horror. I'm curious because there are a number of Euro horrors that do get it right, that do cross the pond to speak to both American audiences and the audiences back at home. So my curiosity is that this is an example of how that kind of fails. I think Eugene brought up an excellent point with the cultural kind of clash that resulted in dragging this thing, basically being an anchor that dragged this thing down. So my curiosity is, what is your out there? Let us know in the live chat or the weekinhorror@gmail.com or in the comments. What is your favorite Euro horror? Or what do you think has been the best Euro horror? Let us know in the comments or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. One of my favorite ones is a movie called Heartless with Jim Sturgis and Timothy Spall. It was a fantastic British horror. Is an English horror. So really, really good shit. Left-Handed Jedi brings up Hostel. Interesting. Very good. I like that.
Yeah, I was like, also a good one. I was going to say Wreck.
Oh, yes. Wreck. Yes. Fucking A. Oh, God. Wreck is so good.
Yeah, Wreck is amazing.
Wreck is fantastic. All right. Well, you know what time it is. That's about it. And we're a little bit over, but that's okay. Who gives a fuck if we go over? Why do I even mention it? But you know what time it is. Eugene knows what time it is. What time is it, Eugene?
It's trivia time! You can't see me dance, so just picture it. Again.
Sorry, I didn't hit pause. on the audio. My bad. I didn't mean to play it twice. I don't know if Raven's in the chat, so I apologize, Raven. I didn't mean to run that twice. So that's my bad. All right, it is trivia time. We've got the live chat pulled up. So the first person to get the correct answer to this trivia question gets a special item from the Week in Horror store. So listen carefully, get those Google fingers ready. Eugene, give them their trivia question. I promise you, this will not be as hard as last week, because last week took fucking forever.
So I'm going to tell you right now, most of y'all should know this without Googling.
Should. If you're
Should.
horror fans.
So the trivia question is, what cult classic body horror film kicked off the career of David Lynch? What cult classic body horror film kicked off the career of David Lynch? First person to comment below will win a prize from their Weekend Horror store.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
Boom.
Bam! There it is. I knew it.
Already.
We had to go easy this time.
See, it was an easy one. Last week, it was just way too hard. Last week was hard, so I figured an easy one that people would just be like, and people, we're going to get like, people messing it up because they're typing so fast. But congratulations. Yes, wrote it, no last name, got it correct. It was Eraserhead. Eraserhead was the body horror film that kicked off the career of David Lynch. Aaron Reese said it was too easy. I had to give it. Aaron, did you hear? I mean, were you here last week? Did you see how fucking long it took to get that goddamn trivia question answered? Fuck, man. It's like, you make it too hard or too easy, I figured, this would be, I figured an easy one was called for. And I see everybody's getting it correct. Sherry Tilley got it right. Casey Cooper got it right. Sarcasm got it right. I know a bunch of people. I'm surprised Jefferson Spatchcock wasn't up in here. Yeah, he may have had to pop it out. Sherry Tilley says last week was like 8 minutes. It was like, yes, it was like damn near 10 minutes. You're waiting for a fucking answer.
We almost gave up.
We're like, I was like, should there be like a timer? So that we don't it's like sitting here for like half an hour. Somebody gonna answer the question. Nah. But way to go. Wrote it no last name. Congratulations. I've got your name down. And we will print that up and get that shipped to you ASAP. Congrats. Yes, Eraserhead. Good fucking movie. As a matter of fact, also, Aaron Reese says, I'm Mr. Google Fingers. I fear no trivia. Then why didn't you answer it?
He can't.
Oh, that's right. He can't, because you can't win. Yes, if you are affiliated with the show, you're done. Ronaldo Same says, and I got it without Googling. That's because you are a pro. You are a fucking pro. You absolutely are. All right. Well, congratulations again. Wrote it no last name. Well done. Gabba to you. We'll get that printed and shipped out to you ASAP. And that, Horror Fiends, is going to conclude this episode of the Week in Horror podcast. We want to thank you all so much for joining us. We truly hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, smash that like and subscribe button. And be sure to hit that bell so that you never miss a future episode. Join us next week. I'm very excited when we look back at the early Clint Howard classic Evil Speak, the psychic serial killer horror Unspeakable, Karloff's classic The Walking Dead, and the comedy slasher Doom Asylum. Be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store over at badsamurai.store. He does all the awesome artwork that you see splattered all over our merchandise, where you can find over at our Teespring. For more from Week in Horror, check out all the bloody links down in the description. Follow us on the socials for the daily splatter, join our Discord for watch parties and all kinds of big announcements, and support the show through channel memberships here, Super Chats, PayPal, or even through our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You see, it's been a long time. It's been quite a while since we've announced a new Patreon. So be the next person. Get that announcement here live on the show. What are you waiting for? Join us. As always, thank you to each and every single one of you for being the greatest audience a horror film podcast could possibly have. I am JL.
And I'm Eugene.
We will see you all next week. And as always, stay scared. Hey. I promise you, he's waving by.